All right, so let's take a look at these graphs and the questions that were associated with them. Um, First of all, when you get to a graph, make sure that you are not just doing this just to do it, that you have the potential to learn something from this graph or from this information, and your brain can figure it out. Look at it as a puzzle of some sort. But don't just try to get the answers just to get the answers just so you get a grade in this class. That doesn't really help your learning. So really try to help your learning by understanding things. So when you go to a graph, make sure you read the title first. Like that's the most important thing. It tells you what you should expect this information to be about. So the title of this, How We Spend Our Time, and right under it, Estimated Time Spent in the United States on Selected Media, 1998 to 2006. Now, one of the things you should do is kind of be like, okay, 1998 to 2006. Do I have some context for that? What's happening at that time? For instance, when we're talking media, you could say, well, 1998 to 2006. How good were video games back then? You also might, if you know anything about the internet had really just come around in the mid 90s. In fact, Google wasn't really even something that many people have heard of. I hadn't heard of it until 2001. And so you got to understand that internet is still pretty new and not nearly as used as it would be today. So there's some things you can look at there before you get into reading the graph. And so then we see hours per person per year. So that's kind of important to see and understand what those numbers actually mean. And I can look for some trends. So it looks like broadcast television, the number of hours people spent per year went down while cable television went up. So cable television must be rising in popularity while broadcast television is going down in popularity. Would make sense. And if you'll notice, they go up by pretty similar numbers. Radio goes up. And actually, I don't know, maybe it surprises you, radio is the number one media that people listened to or watched or whatever um, during this time period. And what does that mean? Is that because and why is it going up? But why are they listening to the radio more? Is it longer commutes to work? What factors in there? And then you can see home videos and video games making the most dramatic rises in the amount of hours per year that people spent doing them. Okay. And then we've got this graph down here, which is basically a blank. So this incomplete graph was created to help describe some of the data in the table above. And so you can see two graphs here. I'm not going to get into this now, but it should be fairly easy to see what these two things are. Okay, so your first question, the projected years 2004 and 2006. What is the relationship shown in the table? So I've got to look at relationship. So pretty much everything is going up. Radio somewhat, um, cable television a little bit, broadcast television is going down. And then the biggest jumps are home video games and video, or home video, sorry, and video games. The biggest jump being home video. So that's kind of what we want to look at. So what is the relationship? More people play video games than watch broadcast television. Well, that's definitely not true. If we look at the numbers, there's nowhere that takes place. More people listen to the radio than watch both kinds of television combined. Well, if you combine the two types of television, more people are not listening to the radio. More people are spending time watching home videos than playing video games. Okay, that is true. So that's a potential answer for us, but we always want to read every answer here. As the number of people watching cable television goes up, the number of people listening to the radio has gone down. And that is not true. So C there is my answer. So hopefully you pick C. Should be a fairly easy one for you. All right, next question is coming up. All right. What label for this should you use for the y-axis? Should be pretty easy there. If you look at this graph, compare it to the data, it looks like this over here is the hours spent per year because you look at whatever this black line is almost 900, and then almost, and it kind of goes down below 800, etc. So the y-axis here should be average number of hours. Okay, that one should be pretty easy for you. And we're going to get to being able to understand those labels a little bit later. Well, actually, right now, here's the next question. What is the best label for the solid line in the key? And if you look at the solid line, it goes from about 900 and then has been shrinking to a little bit below 800. Now we can assume that these x-axis in a line graph, remember you show change over time. So if this is the years, and you notice there's 5 years there, there's 5 years up here. And broadcast television goes down from almost 900 to almost 800. Wow, what do you know? It fits. So the solid line is broadcast television. And I think the next question was, what about the dotted line? And that one, all you got to do is match up the numbers, and you could see that that would be cable or satellite TV for that answer. Okay, making sure that you've got this. And then the last question, what other kind of graph would be appropriately used to represent the data? So this data here, remember, use a line graph if you show change over time. Can you use a line graph? Yes, but you already have, so you don't need another single line graph to show that information. You already got the line graph going on, although you could add more line graphs to that. Could it be a pie graph? No. And the reason is you might think, well, oh, these are my 5 things. I could just make a pie graph representing each one of these 5 things. However, you notice it says selected media. Therefore, are there other media sources out there? Um, like internet or something like that. Yes. And so since this isn't necessarily showing all the media sources out there, I'd be very careful using this as a pie graph or circle graph, and so I probably would avoid it. But it can be a pictograph, and then bar graphs. Could you use a bar graph to compare all these different things? Yes, you could. So there you go. That's the quiz for you. Hope you did pretty well on that. And maybe if you didn't have any problems, you didn't even have to come here for this video. All right.